Hey, my name is Ben. Thanks for stopping by. In this video, we're talking about running PVC through floor joists or framing members, and the best way to do that with as few pieces as possible. So I've got a couple things for you to keep in mind in order to make this go as well as it can. Later in the video, I will show you guys how to pull PVC through the wall, as sometimes you can get by without having to cut all the short pieces in that scenario. But first we'll get started by showing you how to actually get it through the joists. Now obviously PVC is not as flexible as other building materials or PEX, so you can't just snake it through, but there are a couple things that make it a little bit easier. The first one is going to be drilling your holes a little bit larger so that they're big enough to accommodate whatever size your coupling is going to be. Right here we have an 1.5 inch coupling, and you would want to basically find the closest size bit that is going to allow you to have this coupling move a little bit freely back and forth through the holes. Because when you're gluing multiple pieces together, it's inevitable that you're going to have one of the seams that ends up being actually in the joist. You can see right up here, actually, we have an example of that. There's a fitting that's in the wall right there. You're going to want to use a bit that's about the right size for that. So for 1.5 inches, you're going to want to use at least a 2 3/8 inch bit is going to be the minimum size. And I'll link to these carbide bits that Milwaukee makes. They're really fantastic. These big hog bits, as well as to this M18 Super Hog. This thing is absolutely fantastic. If you're going to be drilling a whole bunch of holes, you're going to want to invest in something that's a little bit larger than your typical drill. Now you can get by if you're not doing a huge project with something smaller, but if you're going to be doing a whole bunch, I'll link all the needed stuff in the description of this video. Once you have the bit figured out that you're going to use, you have to take slope into consideration, and you want to aim for 1/4 inch per foot if you are working with a drain. Now this is actually a vent, and this is also going to be sloped. It's sloping back to the location that's being vented, and I'll show that to you in just a minute. But over here we have our highest hole. Then from there I marked my holes down as we went across, and I actually just went down 1/4 inch every 16 inches, so it's a little bit less than 1/4 inch per foot, but since this is a vent, that is totally adequate. If you want some more information on the size and placement of holes in framing members, I actually made a dedicated video about that, so I'll link that in the card right up here. But at a bare minimum, do not drill any holes within 2 inches of the edge of your framing member if at all possible. That's really going to compromise the strength of the framing member. So that's what we've done. We've held it 2 inches down for our first hole over here. And then our holes are going to be going down slowly, getting closer and closer to that bottom edge. So heading over to the location where it's the closest here, this is our lowest spot. So we're about 2 inches from the bottom. This is your opportunity to use the longest pieces possible, because one common mistake I see is cutting your pieces of PVC just the width in between your floor joists, which is going to be like 14.5 inches if you're working with 16-inch on center joists. But if you just go ahead and take the hole that's the closest to the bottom, so we're 2 inches up from the bottom of this joist here, and we are going to angle our hole slightly upwards this direction. And what that's going to allow us to do is to take our piece right here and slide it up until it hits the opposite top corner of that next joist cavity. And you can see right here, we should be able to pivot this up just like that, and now we have the ability to slide this through. So you can see by doing it this way, we can actually fit a piece that's a little over 30 inches compared to 14.5 if you were cutting them the length of the space in between the joists. So we'll stick this back up in here now, and this is ready to go. All we've got to do now is come back and glue all of these together, which is kind of a pain, but it's not that big of a deal. Whatever you do, make sure that you face the lettering towards the ceiling or the wall, because it just has a much more professional look. As you can see, there would be no way to get a longer stick of PVC pulled up and into these holes, especially with that top plate right there. But sometimes you can get lucky if you're feeling strong and you can pull it through and kind of get it to bend and go through all those holes. But in this sort of scenario, you're really not going to have that sort of luck. And especially if you're working with anything larger than 1.5 inches. This section of pipe right here, we were actually able to muscle into the wall without having to cut multiple small pieces. If you found this video to be useful so far, do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe down below if you want to see more videos like this one. There it is. That works perfect on that 3-inch pipe. I know it looks small in our hands, but just perspective, it's the GoPro lens. Actually, it was a 4-inch pipe. That's a 4-inch pipe. Always make sure that you cover any pipes that are standing with something. It doesn't really matter what it is, because you do not want to end up in a situation where you end up dropping something into that pipe and causing yourself a major headache. Just a little bonus tip for you there. Another thing you can sometimes do, if the situation is right, is just drill a hole through to the opposite side of wherever you're working, and then you can put one long piece all the way through. So if this wall on the other side wasn't finished already, we could have possibly drilled a hole right up there and just fed our long piece right through that. I don't actually like to drill holes unless they're actually needed, so I kind of lean away from that generally speaking. But if you had like a really long stretch of PVC that you needed to put in, it might be worth drilling a hole into an adjacent area, or even outside. You can sometimes drill a hole like through to the outside and then feed your pipe through and then patch the hole back in. Comment down below if you have any tips or suggestions for dealing with this sort of a situation. Otherwise, I'm going to put a couple videos here on the screen. This one right up here is about how to glue and prime PVC, and this one down here is the one I was talking about with the requirements for drilling holes through framing members. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys right over there. See ya.